The cameras would not stop flashing. Richard Hale stood in the center of the federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, his once perfectly tailored Armani suit now wrinkled from 3 sleepless nights. His tie hung loose around his neck. His eyes, bloodshot and hollow, stared at the sea of reporters who had once celebrated him as the golden boy of Silicon Valley. Now they were vultures, circling the carcass of his empire. "Mr. Hale, is it true you embezzled over $200 million? Richard, did you know about the fraud scheme from the beginning? Will you plead guilty?" The questions crashed over him like violent waves. His lawyer gripped his arm, trying to pull him toward the black SUV waiting at the curb, but Richard could not move. His legs had turned to stone. His throat burned with words he could not speak. Then through the chaos, through the shouting and the blinding camera lights, he heard a voice, a single voice that cut through everything else. "Rick! Rick! I am here!" Richard turned his head slowly. There, at the edge of the crowd, stood Samuel Torres, 32 years old, 4 feet 11 inches tall, Down syndrome, wearing his favorite blue jacket with the Los Angeles Dodgers logo stitched on the chest. His round face was filled with worry, his eyes wide and searching. He held up a hand and waved, as if they were meeting for coffee, not standing outside a courthouse where Richard's life was being dismantled brick by brick. For a moment, Richard forgot where he was. He forgot the cameras. He forgot the charges. He forgot everything except the look on Sam's face, that look of pure, unfiltered concern, the look of someone who actually cared. "Rick!" Sam called again, pushing through the crowd with surprising determination. "Rick, are you okay? You look sad." The reporters turned. Some of them laughed. A few cameras swung towards Sam, capturing the moment with cruel precision. Richard felt his chest tighten. Shame flooded through him, hot and suffocating. Not because Sam was there, but because for just a second he had felt relief, and he hated himself for it. "Get him out of here," Richard muttered to his lawyer. "Rick, get him away from me." Richard's voice cracked. He turned his back on Sam and climbed into the SUV. The door slammed shut. The tinted windows sealed him inside. As the vehicle pulled away from the curb, Richard glanced back through the rear window. Sam stood alone on the sidewalk, his hand still raised in a frozen wave, confusion spreading across his face like a shadow. Richard closed his eyes and leaned his head against the cold glass. He did not cry. He had not cried in 20 years, not since the day his father told him that emotions were weaknesses and weaknesses were unforgivable, but his hands were shaking. And deep inside his chest, something ancient and buried began to crack. That was 3 days ago. Now Richard sat alone in a hotel room in Pasadena, staring at his phone. 63 missed calls, 112 unread messages. He had scrolled through every name, business partners, investors, friends he had known for decades, celebrities he had partied with in Malibu, executives who had sworn loyalty over whiskey and cigars. Not one of them had called to ask how he was doing. Not one. He set the phone down on the nightstand and looked around the room. It was small, plain, the kind of place where people stayed when they had nowhere else to go. The wallpaper was peeling near the window. The air conditioning rattled like an old man's lungs. Richard had spent the last 48 hours here, ordering takeout and watching the news coverage of his downfall on repeat. They called him a liar, a thief, a fraud. They showed photos of his mansion in Beverly Hills, his collection of vintage cars, his private jet. They interviewed former employees who claimed they always knew something was wrong. They dug up old scandals, old rumors, old wounds. They painted him as a monster, and maybe they were right. Richard stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city glowed under the California sun. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze. Traffic hummed along the streets below. Life continued as if nothing had changed, as if Richard Hale had never existed at all. His phone buzzed. He picked it up, expecting another lawyer, another reporter, another person ready to carve another piece of flesh from his bones. But the name on the screen made him freeze. Sam Torres. Richard stared at the screen for a long moment. His thumb hovered over the decline button. He could ignore it. He could pretend he had not seen it. He could let it ring and ring until Sam gave up. But he did not. He answered. "Hello? Rick!" Sam's voice burst through the speaker, loud and bright and filled with relief. "Rick, you answered. I was worried. I called you so many times. Are you okay? Where are you?" Richard opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. His throat felt like sandpaper. "Rick, are you there?" "Yeah," Richard finally managed. "Yeah, Sam, I am here. I saw you on TV, Sam said, his voice dropping to a whisper, as if sharing a secret. You looked really sad, Rick. I wanted to help you, but you left so fast. Are you sad? Richard closed his eyes. Yes, Sam, I am sad. There was a pause. Richard could hear Sam breathing on the other end of the line. Slow, steady, calm. Do you want to come over? Sam asked. I can make us sandwiches. Peanut butter and jelly. Your favorite, right? Richard almost laughed. Almost. But the sound caught in his chest and turned into something else. Something raw and painful. I do not think that is a good idea, Sam. Why not? Because… Richard hesitated. How could he explain? How could he put into words the weight of shame pressing down on his shoulders? Because I am not good company right now. That is okay, Sam said simply. You do not have to be good company. You just have to be you. Richard felt something crack inside him. Something he had kept locked away for so long, he had forgotten it existed. I will think about it, he said quietly. Okay, Rick. But if you change your mind, you know where I live. Same place, always the same place. I know. And Rick? Yeah, I am your friend. Friends help each other. That is what friends do. The line went dead. Richard stood there, holding the phone to his ear, listening to the silence. Then slowly he set it down and walked back to the window. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful, peaceful, indifferent. He thought about Sam's words. Friends help each other. Richard had spent his entire life believing that friendship was transactional, that loyalty was bought with money and power and influence, that people only stayed close because they wanted something. But Sam did not want anything. Sam never had. And that, Richard realized, was the most terrifying thing of all. 25 years earlier, Richard Hale was just another kid from Riverside, California, with big dreams and no money. His father, Thomas Hale, worked 3 jobs to keep the family afloat after Richard's mother left when he was 7. Thomas was a hard man, quiet, distant, the kind of man who measured love in paychecks and discipline. You want to be somebody, Richard? Thomas had said one night, standing in the doorway of their cramped apartment. Then you better learn that nobody gives you anything in this world. You take it, you fight for it, and you never, ever let anyone see you weak. Richard had nodded, even though he did not fully understand. He was 12 years old. He wanted his father to hug him, to tell him he was proud. But Thomas did not do things like that. So Richard learned to bury his feelings deep, where they could not hurt him. By the time he was 18, Richard had a full scholarship to Stanford. By 25, he had founded his first tech startup. By 30, he was worth $50 million. By 35, his company, Hale Technologies, was valued at $3 billion. The world called him a genius, a visionary, the next Steve Jobs. But Richard knew the truth. He was not a genius. He was just a man who refused to lose, a man who had learned to play the game better than anyone else, a man who built walls so high that no one could climb them. He surrounded himself with people who admired him, people who wanted to be near his success. He bought loyalty with bonuses and stock options. He hosted parties in his mansion overlooking the Pacific Ocean, where champagne flowed like water, and everyone laughed at his jokes. But late at night, when the guests had gone home and the house fell silent, Richard stood alone on his balcony and felt nothing, no joy, no pride, just a vast empty space where something important should have been. He told himself it did not matter. Success was enough, power was enough. And then he met Sam. It was a cold morning in January, 15 years ago. Richard had arrived at the Hale Technologies headquarters early, as he always did. The building was still mostly empty, except for the cleaning crew and a few early risers in the engineering department. Richard walked through the lobby, his shoes clicking against the marble floor when he heard a voice. Good morning. Richard stopped and turned. There, standing beside a cart filled with office supplies, was Sam. He wore a blue polo shirt with the company logo and a name tag that read, Samuel Torres, Warehouse Associate. His smile was wide and genuine, the kind of smile that seemed to radiate warmth. Good morning, Richard replied, more out of habit than actual interest. He started to walk away. You are Mr. Hale, right? Sam called after him. Richard turned back, slightly annoyed. Yes, I am. I am Sam. I work in the warehouse. I sort the supplies and make sure everything is organized. It is a very important job. I am sure it is. Are you having a good day? Richard blinked. No one ever asked him that. It is fine, thank you. That is good, Sam said, his smile never fading. If you ever need anything, just let me know. I am always happy to help. Richard nodded and walked away, dismissing the encounter immediately. Another employee, another face in the crowd. Nothing more. But over the weeks and months that followed, Richard kept seeing Sam in the hallways, in the cafeteria, in the elevator. And every single time, Sam greeted him with the same enthusiasm, the same warmth, the same question. "Good morning, Mr. Hale. Are you having a good day?" At first, Richard found it irritating, then oddly comforting. Sam did not want anything from him, did not ask for favors or promotions, did not try to impress him with business ideas or flattery. Sam just cared. One afternoon, Richard was working late in his office when there was a knock on the door. He looked up, expecting his assistant. Instead, Sam stood in the doorway holding a small box. "Hi, Mr. Hale, I brought you something." Richard frowned. "What is it?" Sam walked in and set the box on the desk. Inside was a sandwich, neatly wrapped in plastic, and a bottle of water. "I noticed you did not eat lunch today, so I made you a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly. It is my favorite." Richard stared at the sandwich. No one had ever brought him food before, not unless they wanted something in return. "Why?" he asked. Sam tilted his head, confused. "Because you looked hungry, and friends take care of each other." "We are not friends, Sam." Sam's smile did not waver. "Not yet, but we could be." Richard did not know what to say. He looked at the sandwich, then at Sam, then back at the sandwich. Finally, he picked it up and took a bite. It was simple, sweet, perfectly ordinary. "Thank you," Richard said quietly. "You are welcome, Mr. Hale. You can call me Rick." Sam's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. "Okay, Rick, see you tomorrow." And he did. Every day after that, Sam made it a point to check on Richard, to bring him coffee, to ask about his day, to remind him in small and gentle ways that he was more than just a title or a bank account. But Richard never fully let Sam in. He kept his distance, maintained the boundaries, because deep down, Richard believed that if he let someone get too close, they would eventually see the truth, that beneath the success and the confidence, he was still just a scared kid from Riverside, trying to prove he was worth something, and that was a risk Richard Hale was not willing to take. Not then, not ever, or so he thought. The cracks began to show 3 years ago. Richard had always prided himself on being meticulous. Every contract reviewed, every deal scrutinized, every financial statement checked and double-checked. But as Hale Technologies grew, so did the complexity. More investors, more board members, more people whispering in his ear, telling him what he wanted to hear. One of those people was Marcus Brennan. Marcus was Richard's chief financial officer, 42 years old, Ivy League educated, sharp as a razor. He had joined the company 5 years prior, and within months he had streamlined operations, cut costs, and increased profits by 30%. Richard trusted him completely. That was his first mistake. The second mistake was ignoring the warning signs. It started small: a discrepancy in the quarterly earnings report, a missing invoice, a payment that did not quite add up. Richard's head of accounting brought it to his attention during a routine meeting, but Marcus waved it off. "It is just a clerical error," Marcus said, his voice smooth and confident. "I will have my team look into it." Richard nodded and moved on. He had bigger things to worry about: a merger with a European tech firm, a product launch that would change the industry, a profile in Forbes magazine. But the discrepancies did not stop. They multiplied. 6 months later, an anonymous tip was sent to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Someone inside Hale Technologies claimed that the company had been falsifying financial records, inflating revenue, hiding losses, moving money through offshore accounts to avoid taxes. The SEC launched an investigation. Richard's world tilted on its axis. He called an emergency board meeting, demanded answers. Marcus sat across the table, calm and composed, and assured everyone that it was a misunderstanding, a disgruntled employee seeking revenge, nothing more. "We will cooperate fully with the investigation," Marcus said. "Our books are clean, we have nothing to hide." But they did. Over the next 6 months, federal agents tore through every file, every email, every transaction. They interviewed employees, seized computers, froze accounts, and slowly, piece by piece, the truth emerged. Marcus had been embezzling money for years, $230 million, funneled through a network of shell companies and fake vendors. He had used Richard's name, Richard's signature, Richard's trust. And when the evidence was presented, Marcus disappeared. No one knew where he went. Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, somewhere far away where extradition laws did not reach. He left Richard holding the bag. The media exploded. Every major news outlet ran the story. Silicon Valley titan accused of fraud. Richard Hale, genius or criminal? The fall of a billionaire. Richard held a press conference, standing in front of a wall of microphones and cameras, sweat dripping down his spine despite the air conditioning. He denied everything, claimed he had been deceived, promised to cooperate with authorities, but no one believed him. The board of directors voted to remove him as CEO. The company rebranded. His assets were frozen. His mansion was seized. His cars, his art collection, his private jet, all of it taken piece by piece until there was nothing left but a man standing in an empty house surrounded by ghosts. And through it all, one person kept calling, Sam. Rick, are you okay? Rick, do you need help? Rick, I am here if you want to talk. Richard never answered. He could not bear to hear the concern in Sam's voice, could not face the one person who still saw him as something other than a fraud. Because if he let Sam in, if he admitted the truth, that he had been blind, that he had failed, that he had lost everything, then it would be real. And Richard was not ready for that. Not yet. The hotel in Pasadena became Richard's prison. Days blurred together. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains, but Richard did not open them. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. 1, 2, 17, 34. He lost count and started over. His lawyer called every day. We need to discuss your testimony. The prosecution is building their case. If we do not act now, Richard hung up. His phone buzzed constantly. Emails, messages, news alerts, all of them variations of the same theme. Richard Hale was guilty. Richard Hale was finished. Richard Hale was a cautionary tale. He stopped reading them. On the 5th day, he ran out of money. The little cash he had left was gone, spent on takeout and the hotel room. His credit cards had been cancelled. His bank accounts were still frozen. He had nothing. Richard sat on the edge of the bed and stared at his phone. There was one name he had not called, one person who might actually answer. He scrolled to Sam's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. What would he even say? Hey Sam, remember me? The guy who ignored you for 3 weeks? Can I crash at your place? It was humiliating, but Richard was out of options. He pressed the button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Rick! Sam's voice burst through the speaker, bright and relieved. Rick, I'm so happy you called. I've been so worried. Are you okay? Richard's throat tightened. No, Sam, I am not okay. There was a pause, then gently, do you need help? Yes. Okay, where are you? Richard gave him the address of the hotel. Within 30 minutes, Sam arrived, slightly out of breath, wearing his blue Dodgers jacket and carrying a grocery bag. I brought snacks, Sam said, holding up the bag with a grin. And I paid for your room for 1 more night. I know the lady at the front desk. She is very nice. Richard stared at him, stunned. Sam, you did not have to. Yes, I did, Sam said firmly, because you are my friend, and friends help each other. Richard felt something inside him break. Not violently, not loudly, just a quiet, irreversible collapse. He sat down on the bed and put his face in his hands. I lost everything, Sam, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My company, my money, my reputation, everything. Sam set the grocery bag down and sat beside him. You did not lose me. Richard looked up, his eyes red and raw. Why? Why do you still care? I ignored you. I pushed you away. I treated you like... He could not finish the sentence. You treated me like everyone else does, Sam said simply. But I know you, Rick. You are not mean. You are just scared. Scared of what? Of being hurt. Sam's voice was soft but certain. My mum told me that people who push others away are usually the ones who are hurting the most. So I waited, because I knew you would call when you were ready. Richard felt tears prick the corners of his eyes. He had not cried in 20 years. Not since his father told him that men did not cry, that emotions were weaknesses. But right now, sitting in a cheap hotel room with a man the world had taught him to underestimate, Richard Hale cried. He cried for the years he had wasted building walls, for the people he had pushed away, for the life he had lived in fear of being seen as weak. And Sam sat beside him, patient and steady, until the tears stopped. Come on, Sam said, standing up and offering his hand. Let us go home. I do not have a home anymore. Yes, you do, Sam said with a smile. Mine. Sam's apartment was small, a 1-bedroom unit in a quiet neighborhood near the Pasadena Community Center. The walls were painted a cheerful yellow, There were framed photos everywhere. Sam with his mother, Sam at the beach, Sam volunteering at the food bank. The furniture was mismatched but comfortable. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and coffee. It was nothing like Richard's mansion, and it was the most welcoming place Richard had ever been. "You can sleep on the couch," Sam said, pulling out a stack of blankets and pillows from a closet. "It is pretty comfortable. I take naps on it all the time." Richard stood in the middle of the living room, feeling completely out of place. He had spent the last 20 years in luxury, private chefs, custom furniture, marble countertops, and now he was standing in a tiny apartment, holding a pillow with a cartoon dog on it. "Sam, I cannot stay here. I will find somewhere else." "Where?" Sam asked, turning to face him. "You do not have money. You do not have a house. Where will you go?" Richard did not have an answer. "Exactly," Sam said, nodding as if that settled it. "So you will stay here, and tomorrow we will figure out what to do next." That night, Richard lay on Sam's couch, staring at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet, peaceful. Through the window, he could see the lights of the city glowing softly in the distance. For the first time in weeks, Richard felt something other than panic. He felt safe. The next morning, Sam woke him up with a cup of coffee and a smile. "Good morning, Rick. Today is Saturday, so I do not have work. We can do whatever you want." Richard sat up, rubbing his eyes. "What do you usually do on Saturdays?" "I volunteer at the community center. We help serve breakfast to people who do not have food. Do you want to come?" Richard hesitated. The idea of being around people, of being recognized, terrified him, but the hope in Sam's eyes was impossible to resist. "Sure," Richard said. "Why not?" The Pasadena Community Center was a modest building with chipped paint and a faded sign. Inside, it was warm and bustling. Volunteers moved between tables, serving scrambled eggs, toast, and fruit to a line of people who looked tired but grateful. Families, elderly individuals, veterans, people who had fallen through the cracks, people like Richard. Sam introduced him to the coordinator, a woman named Margaret who had kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Any friend of Sam's is a friend of ours," she said. "We can always use an extra pair of hands." Richard was given an apron and stationed at the serving line. At first he felt awkward, out of place, but as the morning went on, something shifted. He watched Sam move through the room, greeting everyone by name, asking about their families, making them laugh. Sam did not see broken people. He saw friends, and slowly Richard began to see them too. An elderly man with trembling hands thanked him for the extra helping of eggs. A young mother smiled when Richard complimented her daughter. A veteran with a weathered face told Richard he appreciated the work he was doing. No one recognized him. No one cared about his past. Here, he was just another volunteer, just another person trying to help, and it felt good. That evening, as they walked back to the apartment, Sam turned to Richard with a grin. "You did great today, Rick. Everyone liked you." Richard smiled, a real smile, the kind he had not felt in years. "Thanks, Sam. I liked it too." "See? You just needed to try something new." Richard looked at his friend, this man who saw the world with such clarity and kindness, and felt a surge of gratitude. "Sam, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why are you so kind to everyone, even people who do not deserve it?" Sam tilted his head, thinking, "My mom always told me that everyone is fighting a battle you cannot see, so you should be kind, just in case they need it." Richard nodded slowly. "Your mom sounds like a smart woman." "She is," Sam said proudly. "You will meet her soon. She makes the best tamales." Over the following weeks, Richard settled into a routine. He volunteered at the community center. He helped Sam with chores. He learned to cook simple meals. He spent hours talking with people he would have ignored just months ago, and slowly the shame began to lift. But the legal battle was far from over. Richard's lawyer called regularly, pressing him to prepare for trial. The prosecution was building their case. They had emails, financial records, testimony from former employees. They wanted to make an example of him. Richard knew he had a choice. He could fight. He could claim ignorance. He could hire a team of lawyers and drag the case out for years. Or he could tell the truth. It was Sam who helped him decide. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching an old movie, Sam turned to Richard and asked, "Rick, are you going to be okay with the court thing?" Richard sighed. "I do not know, Sam. It is complicated. But you did not do anything bad, right?" Richard hesitated. "I did not steal the money. But I should have been paying attention. I should have seen what was happening, and I did not. So in a way, it is my fault." Sam frowned. "If you made a mistake, you should say sorry. That is what my mom taught me. When you mess up, You apologize and try to fix it. Richard looked at Sam, this man who saw the world in such simple, beautiful terms. What if people do not forgive me? Sam shrugged. Then at least you tried, and that is what matters. Richard thought about that for a long time, and he realized Sam was right. It was time to stop running. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the back rows, their cameras trained on the front of the room. Former employees sat in clusters, whispering to each other. Investors who had lost millions glared from the gallery. The air was thick with anticipation. Richard sat at the defense table, his hands folded in front of him. His lawyer leaned over and whispered, "Are you sure about this? Once you start, there is no going back." Richard nodded. "I am sure." The judge entered and the room fell silent. The prosecution presented their case first. They showed emails, financial records, testimony from Marcus Brennan's assistant, who had turned state's witness. They painted a picture of a company built on lies, and a CEO who had either orchestrated it or been criminally negligent. Then it was Richard's turn. He stood and walked to the witness stand. The eyes of the room followed him. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, and then he did. "My name is Richard Hale," he began, his voice steady but quiet, "and I stand before you today not to defend myself, but to take responsibility." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. "For the last 3 years I have told myself that I was a victim, that I was deceived, that I was not to blame, and while it is true that I did not steal the money, it is also true that I failed. I failed to ask the right questions. I failed to protect the people who trusted me. I failed to be the leader they deserved." Richard's voice cracked, but he pushed forward. "I built Hale Technologies from nothing. I was so focused on success, on growth, on proving that I was worth something, that I forgot the most important thing. A company is not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it is people. Real people with families and dreams and lives that depend on the decisions I made, and I let them down." He looked out at the courtroom, at the faces staring back at him, some angry, some sad, some indifferent. "I cannot give back the money that was stolen. I cannot undo the damage that was done, but I can tell you the truth. Marcus Brennan deceived me, but I let him. I was so blinded by ambition that I ignored the warning signs, and for that, I am deeply, truly sorry." Richard's eyes found Sam, sitting in the third row, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Sam gave him a small nod, a gesture of encouragement. Richard took a deep breath. "Over the last few months I have lost everything, my company, my money, my reputation, and I thought that was the worst thing that could happen to me. But I was wrong. The worst thing was realizing that I had spent my entire life building walls, pushing people away, believing that success was the only thing that mattered." He paused, his voice trembling. "And then I met someone who showed me what really matters. Someone who did not care about my money or my title. Someone who saw me as a person, as a friend. Someone I had ignored for years because I was too arrogant to see his worth." Richard's gaze locked on Sam. "His name is Sam Torres, and he saved my life. Not with money, not with power, but with kindness, with patience, with the kind of loyalty I did not deserve but received anyway." Sam's eyes filled with tears. "So I stand here today, not asking for forgiveness," Richard said, his voice firm now. "I stand here asking for a chance to rebuild, a chance to make things right, a chance to become the person I should have been all along." The courtroom was silent. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, do you understand that by admitting negligence, you are opening yourself up to both criminal and civil penalties?" "I do, Your Honor." "And you still wish to proceed with this testimony?" "I do." The judge nodded slowly. "Very well." The trial continued for 3 more days. Lawyers argued, witnesses testified, evidence was presented. But Richard's confession changed the tone. The prosecution could no longer paint him as a heartless criminal. The defense could no longer claim complete innocence. Richard Hale was a man who had made mistakes, and he was willing to own them. When the verdict came, Richard was found guilty of negligence but not fraud. He was sentenced to community service and ordered to pay restitution from whatever future earnings he might have. His name would forever be linked to one of the biggest financial scandals in Silicon Valley history. But he was free. As Richard left the courthouse, the reporters swarmed him. But this time, he did not run. He stopped at the top of the steps and faced the cameras. "I made mistakes," he said simply, "and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for them. Thank you." And then he walked down the steps, past the cameras, past the shouting reporters, toward the street where Sam was waiting. Sam's face broke into a wide smile. "You did it, Rick. You told the truth." Richard laughed, a real, genuine laugh that echoed through the plaza. "Yeah, Sam, I did." Sam threw his arms around Richard in a tight hug, and for the first time in his life, Richard hugged him back. 6 months later, Richard stood in the middle of the Pasadena Community Center, a paintbrush in his hand staring at the freshly painted wall. The room smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Margaret walked in, carrying a box of supplies. "Looking good, Richard. I think we will be able to open the new wing by next month." Richard smiled. "I hope so. A lot of people need this space." After the trial, Richard had thrown himself into rebuilding, not his fortune, but his life. He volunteered full-time at the community center. He helped organize fundraisers. He mentored young entrepreneurs who were starting their own businesses. He shared his story, not as a cautionary tale, but as proof that failure did not have to be the end. And slowly, people began to listen. A local newspaper ran a story about his transformation. A podcast invited him to talk about redemption. A few of his former employees reached out, offering forgiveness and even friendship. But the most important change was internal. Richard no longer measured his worth by his bank account or his reputation. He measured it by the people he helped, the lives he touched, the relationships he built. One afternoon, as Richard was cleaning up after a lunch service, Sam walked over with a grin. "Rick, guess what?" "What?" "My mom wants you to come to dinner tomorrow. She is making tamales, and she said you better bring an appetite." Richard laughed. "Tell her I will be there." Sam's smile widened. "She likes you, Rick. She said you have a good heart." "I am working on it," Richard said quietly. That evening, Richard sat on the steps outside the community center, watching the sun set over Pasadena. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, the same colors he had seen from his hotel window all those months ago. But this time, he was not alone. Sam sat beside him, munching on a bag of chips. "Rick?" "Yeah, Sam? Are you happy?" Richard thought about the question. He thought about the mansion he used to own, the cars, the private jet, the applause, the accolades. And then he thought about the people he had met at the community center, the smiles, the gratitude, the sense of purpose that filled his chest every morning when he woke up. He thought about Sam, about the friendship that had saved him when he had nothing left. "Yeah, Sam," Richard said, his voice steady and sure. "I am happy." Sam grinned and offered him a chip. "Good, because you deserve to be happy, Rick. Everyone does." Richard took the chip and smiled. For the first time in his life, he believed it. Epilogue, the lesson. 3 years after the trial, Richard Hale stood on a small stage in a conference room at the Pasadena Community Center. The room was filled with people, volunteers, donors, former employees, and friends. Sam sat in the front row wearing his blue Dodgers jacket, his face beaming with pride. Richard had been invited to speak at the center's annual fundraiser. The topic, second chances. He looked out at the crowd and took a deep breath. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Richard began. 3 years ago, I stood in a courtroom and admitted that I had failed. I had lost everything I thought mattered. My company, my money, my reputation. I thought my life was over. He paused, letting the words settle. But I was wrong. My life was not over. It was just beginning. Because losing everything gave me something I never had before. Perspective. Richard's gaze found Sam. "I spent decades chasing success. I believed that if I was rich enough, powerful enough, respected enough, then I would finally be happy. But no amount of money could fill the emptiness inside me. No amount of success could heal the wounds I carried." His voice softened. "And then when I had nothing left, I found something I had been searching for my entire life. I found a friend. Not someone who wanted something from me, not someone who admired my wealth or my status, but someone who saw me, the real me, and chose to care anyway." Richard's voice cracked with emotion. "Sam Torres taught me that the most valuable things in life cannot be bought. They can only be earned through kindness, through patience, through showing up, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." He looked around the room. "We live in a world that tells us our worth is measured by what we achieve, how much we earn, how many followers we have, how impressive our resume looks. But that is a lie. Our worth is not determined by what we have. It is determined by how we treat others, by the love we give, by the compassion we show to those the world has taught us to overlook." Richard's eyes glistened with tears, but he did not wipe them away. "I lost everything, and I gained everything. I lost my fortune and found my purpose. I lost my reputation and found my integrity. I lost my pride and found my humanity." He took a deep breath. So if you take anything away from my story tonight, let it be this. It is never too late to change. It is never too late to choose kindness over ambition. It is never too late to see the people around you, really see them, and recognize that they are not obstacles or tools or stepping stones. They are human beings, just like you, just like me. Richard's voice grew stronger. And if you ever find yourself at the bottom, surrounded by the wreckage of everything you built, remember this. You are not defined by your failures. You are defined by what you do next, by whether you choose to blame the world or take responsibility, by whether you choose to isolate yourself or reach out for help, by whether you choose to stay bitter or become better. He smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile. 3 years ago, I was a millionaire who had everything and felt nothing. Today, I am a man who has very little and feels everything, and I would not trade that for anything in the world. The room erupted in applause. People stood. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Sam jumped to his feet, clapping so hard his hands turned red. After the speech, people lined up to shake Richard's hand, to thank him, to share their own stories of failure and redemption. Richard listened to each one, offering encouragement and understanding. When the last person left, Sam walked over, still grinning. "That was amazing, Rick. You made everyone cry." Richard laughed. "I did not mean to make them cry. They were happy tears," Sam said. "The good kind." Richard put his arm around Sam's shoulder. "Come on, let us go get some ice cream." "Ice cream?" Sam exclaimed. "Yes. Can I get 2 scoops?" "You can get 3 if you want." As they walked out of the community center into the warm California evening, Richard looked up at the sky. The stars were just beginning to appear, tiny points of light against the darkening blue. He thought about the man he used to be, the man who had measured his life in dollars and deals, the man who had built walls so high that no one could reach him, and he thought about the man he had become, the man who measured his life in moments and connections, the man who had learned that the greatest wealth was not found in a bank account, but in the people who stood by you when you had nothing left to offer. Richard Hale had lost everything, and in losing everything, he had found himself. He looked down at Sam, who was chattering excitedly about which ice cream flavors he wanted to try, and smiled. "Hey, Sam." "Yeah, Rick? Thank you." Sam tilted his head, confused. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For seeing something in me that I could not see in myself. For being my friend when I did not deserve one." Sam's face grew serious for a moment. Then he smiled, that wide, radiant smile that had first caught Richard's attention all those years ago in the lobby of Hale Technologies. "You do not have to thank me, Rick. That is what friends do. We do not give up on each other. Ever." Richard felt his throat tighten. He blinked back tears and nodded. "Ever," he repeated softly. They walked down the street together, 2 friends under the California stars, their shadows stretching long behind them. Richard no longer owned a mansion or a private jet or a company worth billions. He owned a small apartment, a bicycle, and a purpose. And for the first time in his life, Richard Hale was truly, deeply, completely rich, not in the way the world measured wealth, but in the way that mattered most. In a world obsessed with success, he finally understood that the greatest achievement is not to build an empire or amass a fortune or be admired by millions. The greatest achievement is simply to love without shame, to see the humanity in others, to stand beside those the world overlooks, to choose compassion over pride, to choose connection over isolation, to choose kindness over power. Richard Hale had been a millionaire who lost everything, and in the end, he discovered that the only thing he ever really needed was the one thing he almost threw away: a friend who never asked for anything in return, a friend who stayed when everyone else left, a friend who taught him that true wealth is not found in what you own, but in who you love and who loves you back. And that lesson, Richard knew, was worth more than all the money in the world.